and the cost of books and supplies just to help you when you're financing. We look at personal expenses as well as transportation, and all of those components are brought together to kind of put together a budget for the student with which we can work in. So how are you going to pay for all that? It's a big cost. At any university, you're looking at a big cost to come to that school, and it includes most of those things. But at Xavier, we help you and we look at your different sources of financial aid. So we offer scholarships, which are academic-based. You do not have to pay scholarships back. Scholarships are merit-based when you come into Xavier, or you can apply for additional scholarships moving forward into your sophomore year. We also offer grants, which are need and talent-based, and we'll talk a little bit about those in a minute. We offer loans, and there's also work opportunities. And between the loans and the work opportunities, there's a couple of different options that you can have. So let's start with the non-repayable monies. That would be scholarships. Scholarships are based on your achievement and your interests. They're determined when you apply and get accepted to Xavier, and that's just your initial scholarship. It does not take into consideration your income, and some will come directly from your institution you plan on attending. At Xavier, we have different levels of merit-based scholarships, but we also accept local, regional, and national scholarships. So if you apply for a scholarship at your local high school and you get it, that can be applied to your tuition, or somewhere in your community, that can be applied to your tuition. So when you're applying for scholarships, it's good to keep in mind whether it's an internal or an external scholarship and whether you're going to be responsible with giving the destination of that scholarship check. Moving forward, another non-repayable source that you can get is grants. If you're from the state of Ohio, there's different grants you can receive within the state of Ohio. Other state grants include Pennsylvania and Vermont we do accept. Unfortunately, we don't accept Kentucky Keys money. That is only to the state of Kentucky. But when you're looking at grants, you're looking at different types of grants. We have our need-based grants, which are composed of your federal grants, your Pell Grant, your Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, or SEOG. You can get the Teach Grant if you're planning on going into education. And with that, there is a commitment to serve. So if you're interested in that, you're looking at the commitment past graduation, then you sign up for it beforehand and go through a whole process, but they do fund some of your education. And then we also have the Ohio College Opportunity Grant, and that's specifically to the state of Ohio. Then you have grants that are not based on academics. You have your Muskie program grants, your Xavier University grants. These are based on need and given to students based on their need. We also offer talent-based grants, so you're looking at performing arts, pep band, spirit awards, and then our athletic grants, which are also composed of spirit awards, basketball, women's basketball, cross country, soccer, volleyball. If you're partaking in any sort of athletic grant or athletic program that is part of the D1 programs, you can look at athletic grants there. And then finally, we have our performance grants, vocal, instrumental, and theater, and those all are given to you based on the department. Some are given coming in your freshman year, some are given sophomore year, later on in your academic career. Next, we have your federal loans program. And we're going to break these down a little bit more for you. When you're looking at federal loans, you're looking at two separate options. Within your federal loans, there's the subsidized and the unsubsidized loan. You may have heard of these loans. The difference between them is that one of them incurs interest while you're in school, the other does not. As a freshman, you're eligible for $5,500 in total federal loan money. That can be broken down between your subsidized and your unsubsidized loan, and that's based on need. If there's a significant need for the student, you'll receive some subsidized loan money. If there's not, you'll receive the entirety as an unsubsidized loan. The interest rates for the loans are the same, and they're a 4.29% fixed interest rate. That's lower than most private loans. And these are all supplied by the federal government, so you're looking at a 6-month deferment past graduation for both of those loans. As you move forward into your sophomore, junior, and senior year, you're looking at an increase in those federal loans. So sophomore year, you can get a total of $6,500, and junior and senior year, you can get a total of $7,500. Another federal loan program that is an option to students is the Parent Plus Loan Program. The Parent Plus Loan Program is where the parents borrow on behalf of the student. When you're looking for a loan, you want to be aware that most loans outside of the federal loan program are credit-based, so they will do a credit score test on you. For parents, you will put in your information, and if you get denied, there's no reason to worry. There's other options, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But with the Parent Plus loan, you're looking at a 6.84% fixed interest rate with another option for deferment 6 months after graduation. If you do not choose that deferment option, you will have to begin repaying that loan within 60 days. The max, for that loan, you can request up to the maximum amount of the budget. So let's say you get a $15,000 scholarship, you take out your full loan amount, and you still have $12,000 that you're looking to pay. And you really just can't make that this year. Well, you can request that full amount in the Parent Plus loan, and provided you get approved, you can have that full amount to cover the rest of your schooling. If you do not get approved, the student then has an option to request additional aid due to Parent Plus loan denial. Our office looks to work with the students as they go through this process because we try to do everything we can to make sure the student gets here. If that's still not enough, the parent can look for an endorser to help endorse them with a loan, or they can appeal the denial process. Either way will help the student get here. So, as I had mentioned, the parent may borrow up to the full cost of attendance. There is that interest rate of 6.82%, and before the loan pays to the student account, there is a 4.28% origination and guarantee fee that comes off. That's the same at every university because it is a federal loan. The interest on that loan, just like the unsubsidized loan, begins accruing immediately, and repayment can last up to 10 years on that loan. And like I had said, repayment can begin 60 days after the final disbursement if you do not opt to defer the loan until after graduation. Another loan option for students and parents is a private or alternative loan. Students can secure loans from a private lender, which include banks, credit unions, and lending institutions. A lot of common ones are Wells Fargo, Sallie Mae, PNC, Discover. These do have competitive interest rates and can be fixed or variable depending on your contract with those lending institutions. A cosigner will be required with a credit check unless the student is 21 years old or older. And repayment can usually be deferred on these loans, but sometimes, depending on the contract, it may not. And the same as with a Parent Plus loan, that amount cannot exceed the cost of attendance, minus all other aid. When you're looking for an alternative loan or trying to figure out which one's the best for you, Xavier's Financial Aid Office did put together a website. It's located on our federal loans page, all the way at the bottom under alternative loans. It's called Fast Alt Solutions. This webpage works to connect you with the alternative loan that's best for you if that's an option you're choosing to pursue. Another option for financing your aid would be work opportunities. So there's two separate types of work opportunities that Xavier offers to students. We have your federal work study program, which is based off of the need of the student. That's part of the federal earnings program and looks at the student's FAFSA information to determine whether or not they qualify for work study. Generally, students have to go to the career fair at the beginning of a school year and apply and interview for these work study positions. If the student chooses not to interview or does not receive a position, they will lose that work study eligibility for that year. If in subsequent years they do secure a job and they would like their work study back, they can request it, but it's no guarantee. Work study money that's given to you on your award is not guaranteed, and it's important to remember that. This is a paid position, so the money that would go towards your school account would have to be earned by the student. Most of these jobs are 8 to 10 hours a week, and students can hold multiple jobs if they find them. If the work-study positions do not fill up from the career fair, then they open up to students all around campus, and any student can pursue them. So what happens if you don't qualify for work-study? Xavier does also offer several jobs around campus that aren't work-study restricted, as well as the new university station, which offers employment to students. Any place in the area students can work at, and they can also apply to places like the library or the mail center that aren't work-study restricted. So you've decided you wanted to come to Xavier and you've started the application. It's January 1st, so my guess is that most of you have already thought about or started applying for your FAFSA. When you're going through the FAFSA application process, there's a couple of different things that'll happen. First, when you log in, you'll have to register for your FSA ID. Both parents and students will have to register for an FSA ID and password. It's important that you put these somewhere safe because you'll have to continually use them for the next 4 years. You're going to file this FAFSA as soon as possible after January 1st. So if you haven't done it already, I would jump on that boat. You're going to go to www.fafsa.ed.gov. It's very, very important to remember that FAFSA is free. Don't pay any site to fill out your FAFSA. Don't pay any business to fill out your FAFSA. If you're having any issues with it, please contact our office. We're here to help you fill that out. It should not be a burden to have to apply for the FAFSA. Once you've applied and submitted your FAFSA information, you'll receive a student aid report, SAR. At first, the SAR will be based off of estimates from your previous year's taxes. We understand that many families don't file their taxes till after they submit the FAFSA, and that's okay. You're just going to supply us with an estimate number of what your income was from the previous year, and then once you file your taxes and have the actual numbers, you'll go back in and resubmit it. But once you receive that initial student aid report, it will be emailed to you from the filer and will be reviewed for accuracy if needed. You can then correct it online. Most important part is to make sure that you remember to sign. Both the parent and the student do need to sign the FAFSA. After you've submitted your taxes, you can file any other financial aid documents requested by your college. These include verification, which is a random process that the government goes through. You can also supply a special circumstance appeal or any additional aid requests once your FAFSA has been filed. Beginning the 3rd week of February, Xavier will begin awarding students based off of their FAFSA information. At that time, an award package will be sent to you, and you can review it and contact our office if you have any questions. So, you've applied for the FAFSA, you've received your scholarship, all eligible grants, and you're wondering how to pay. There's a couple different payment options you can go through with the bursar's office, and I believe he'll be discussing those more in depth next week.
Yep, that'll be 2 weeks from now. We'll have another Muskie chat on that. Yep.
Yep. So just very briefly, a couple of things you'll go through. You can either pay in full. You can do the payment plan through the bursar's office. Like I mentioned, you could take out a parent loan, whether it's private, alternative, or a plus loan. Or you could take out that alternative loan in the student's name. Questions?
All right. Thank you very much, Angela. We actually have had quite a few. So if Sarah wants to start us off with the first question.
I will get us started. Let me find where we started off. All right. So our first question is from Anthony. And Anthony asked, after we fill out the FAFSA form, how long does it take for the student to hear back from Xavier about their financial aid package?
Federally, colleges and universities are not allowed to bring in FAFSAs until February 15th. This current year, there is a restriction for a new secure processing procedure. So Xavier University, as well as other universities, are looking to start pulling in FAFSAs the 3rd week of February. As I had mentioned, once we pull in FAFSAs, it usually takes a week to 2 weeks for us to award students. It's on a first come, first served basis. So the earlier you get your FAFSA in, the earlier you're going to get that award package. We don't award students any later than the 2nd week of March. So you will hear back by
All right, so the next question we have is, are international students eligible for need-based aid?
International students are not eligible for need-based aid because they would have to file a FAFSA. If that international student is a U.S. citizen as well as their parents and they're just working overseas, they can go through that process, and I would invite you to contact our office. But if you're not filing taxes through the U.S. government and you're not a citizen, there are other loan options for you to pursue. Those are also on our website as well as on the admissions website. But at that point in time, you're not eligible for federal aid.
All right. So our next question is from Emily. And Emily asked if there are any scholarships that are automatically given to students coming from a Catholic high school.
No, there are not scholarships automatically for students coming from a Catholic high school. There are Catholic Dean's Award and Jesuit scholarships, but those are awarded to students based on merit, the same as all other students. There's no distinction between their merit scholarship and a Catholic scholarship.
All right, so next we have one from Samuel. Samuel said, do scholarship awards affect the need-based aid, or are they independent of one another?
They don't affect the need-based aid, but they are tuition restricted. So if the student has a full tuition scholarship, then they are restricted to only having aid based within that budget. So say you get a full tuition scholarship and you only have $1,000 left in need on your tuition payment. At that point in time, that would be your subsidized loan, and any other loan amount you would need would be unsubsidized loan. So we don't exclude you from being able to partake in a federal loan program, but there are limitations between whether you can have a subsidized loan or an unsubsidized loan.
All right. So our next question is from Cheryl, and she asked, is there a family income amount that if your income is above that it's not actually worth filing the FAFSA?
We generally don't advise not filing for a FAFSA because at any point during the year, your financial situation can change. We also look to use the FAFSA when we're awarding upperclassmen scholarships. We look for need. If there's any sort of retention aid that we go through, we do look for need, as well as if they're applying for any sort of study abroad scholarships through Xavier. Generally, departments will look and see if the student is getting full coverage of their tuition. Given that you may not qualify for subsidized loan, as I mentioned, you're always eligible for unsubsidized loan money. And for many parties, the unsubsidized loan has the lowest interest rate. So you would want to take advantage of that federal loan program.
All right, so Rachel said, if need-based aid is awarded, is it automatically renewed for 4 years?
Need-based aid is not. Scholarships are automatically awarded for 8 semesters. So if you decide to take a semester off and study abroad, or if you just need to take a semester off for personal reasons and you're not attending another university, your scholarship is eligible for 8 semesters. And we like to emphasize the 8 semesters because we don't want you to feel restricted to have to study at school for 4 years and then lose your scholarship. If you need to take that extra semester for whatever reason and take one off, we'll work with you through that process. But need-based aid is given to you based off of your FAFSA information. So if your FAFSA changes from year to year, because you will have to apply from a FAFSA every year, your need-based aid may change every year based off of that FAFSA.
So our next question is from Danielle. And she asks, does work study and or student employment require a student to file a tax return?
Before getting it or after?
I would assume before, in order to qualify.
In order to qualify for work study, you will have to file the FAFSA, which would require your taxes. To just pursue university employment, that's not work study restricted. You do not have to.
All right, another Rachel said, when is the FAFSA due?
FAFSA, we advise you getting your FAFSA in no later than February 15th, just because you want to receive your award at the earliest possible time so that you can make that decision by decision day.
All right. So Cheryl has a question, and she asks, if you do not file the FAFSA, does that limit your ability to get merit or other scholarships? So it's kind of a multi-layer question. And then in addition to that, is there any negative impact for not filing the FAFSA other than not getting need-based aid?
There's no negative impact for not filing the FAFSA, but like I had mentioned, in like sophomore, junior, and senior year, if the department that they're studying in is looking to award students, whether they received an endowment or some fund money, they're looking to invest it in their own students, then that may limit the student selection process, and because typically they'll look for students that have need or are not receiving a lot. As for their merit scholarship, that is not need-based. That's based on the student's achievements. So filing the FAFSA won't hinder that need-based aid, but it may not allow them to get a Muskie grant or any other grants that are based off of that FAFSA information.
And there is a third part to Cheryl's question as well. So she also asks, is there a way to file the FAFSA and keep the family financial information that was submitted on the FAFSA from being known or seen by the student?
No, there's not, because it is the student. The loans are in the student's name, so the student would have access to that FAFSA information. If the student chooses not to look at that information, that's completely up to them, but they will have to sign that FAFSA saying that information's accurate. So I wouldn't advise hiding that from them or keeping that away from them.
Then Zachary also said that the FAFSA is technically due on March 31st, it says on the website, but we still, correct me if I'm wrong, we still advise that you try to get in by February 15th, since that is our priority deadline, just to make the most of everything.
Yeah, and that's so that you're awarded on time, because if you wait until March 31st, after that first week of March, we begin awarding all students at Xavier, whether they're incoming freshmen moving to sophomore year, junior year, senior year, and above. We award everybody. And like I said, we did first come, first serve. So we try to give incoming freshmen that priority deadline so that they can get their awards out early and they can see what Xavier is going to offer them. For whatever reason, if you can't file it by that priority deadline, we won't penalize you for it. It just may take a little bit longer for you to get that award.
So our next question is from Matthew. And Matthew said that he applied for tuition exchange. And he is curious to know how he would be notified if he was awarded it or not. And then also, is tuition exchange for full tuition or could it be for partial tuition?
So it could be for both. What happens is Xavier has a certain number of full tuition exchange students per se that they're granted each year. They're currently in the process of working through tuition exchange and seeing who's renewing their tuition exchange and who is not. And based off of that information, we can either award full tuition exchange to incoming students based off of the number available we have, or partial based off of the number available we have. So right now they're in the process of doing that, like I said, and students will be notified via email once the decisions have been made.
All right, so we have a question from Teresa. So I'm not sure how much you are aware of this, but hopefully you can recite some insight. She was wondering if the 9/11 GI Bill, sorry, I scrolled down, 9/11 GI Bill and Yellow Ribbon School programs will be discussed at all. So I'm not sure how much you know about that.
If they're denied them or if they're using them.
Just says will be discussed. So I don't know if you could briefly talk a little bit about them in general.
So generally, GI and Yellow Ribbon information is discussed with our VA certifying officer because there are different levels of eligibility. So one person in our office when we're working on having a second does have to be certified by the VA in order to process these benefits and this eligibility. With the GI Bill, there's, like I said, there's different levels of eligibility. The student would have to notify us that they're interested in using their GI benefits or their Yellow Ribbon benefits. And if it's the parent's GI Bill, same thing, student would have to notify us. At that time, the student would then have to provide us with their certificate of eligibility. They'll be in communication with the VA certifying officer on any follow-up information she may need, and at that time, she'll begin processing those VA benefits. Typically, for Yellow Ribbon, the way that one works is that the VA pays part of the money, and then Xavier pays the other part of the money. So there's a certain amount that the student is allocated, and the VA will pay that typically in the first semester, and then Xavier will have to match that amount, and that typically is in the second semester.
And Angela, I know you mentioned that we have a specific individual, correct, in the financial aid office who typically works with those VA benefits. Do you know who is that individual?
At this time, we're still working on
Okay.
that. It's just best that you contact XU FinAid, and then you'll be directed as needed.
So our next question is from Rachel, and she asked, does it matter what order you list your college choices on the FAFSA?
No, it does not, because as of 2015, FAFSA does not release the order or the other colleges that you apply to. So this is to give fairness to all students and all universities, so no other university can see who you put first, who you put second, who you put third.
All right, sorry, hold on one second. What is the CSS financial aid profile, and do we have to complete that as well?
For
That was from
Xavier,
Garfield.
For Xavier, you do not have to complete the CSS profile. Some private schools require that just to look at your financial aid in a different way, look at your assets or income, things like that. We do not require that at Xavier. You do not have to fill that out for here. With that being said, you may have to fill it out for other private institutions, but we do not require it.
All right, and so Jonathan asked if the information that you provided this evening is available on our website. A lot of this information will be available on the financial aid website. In addition to that, we are recording this session as well. So for those of you who want to kind of take a look at this later on, this will be available on the Road to Xavier by tomorrow morning as well.
The information on our website also goes a little bit more in depth if you're interested on that. And we do have returning student scholarships, enrolled student scholarships already up, as well as private non-Xavier scholarships. There is a full up-to-date list on there.
So, and as Angela's said multiple times, we do encourage you to reach out to either admissions and financial aid office at any time with any questions to really get in depth and answer those questions for you. From Catherine, we have, if you are waiting to hear from the School of Nursing at Xavier, should you wait to submit the FAFSA until you've heard, or should you submit it right away?
I would submit it right away because you don't want to wait on sending that and then hear back from them past that priority deadline. And if you submit the FAFSA and you don't hear and you don't get the answer you want from them, then that's no way going to harm you, whether it's at Xavier or at any other university. It doesn't hurt to submit your FAFSA.
I will also add, we are working as fast as we can on those nursing decisions, so we should have them out sometime next week. So thank you for being patient. We'll get those out to you soon.
Mm-hmm. So Tessa also has a question, and her question is, how do you get a full tuition scholarship?
We have two opportunities for that, the Community Engaged Fellow Scholarship and the St. Francis Xavier Scholarship. Both of those are scholarship competitions, so they have separate applications. I would invite you to look on our webpage for the St. Francis Xavier Scholarship, as well as the Community Engaged Fellowship Scholarship, which I believe is on the Community Engaged page.
Yes.
And look at the application process for those. The Community Engaged Fellowship is not handled by the Financial Aid Office, so you would be working with a different office on that. But the St. Francis Xavier, I believe the deadline's coming up pretty soon, so I would look at that.
It's actually February 1st.
Yeah,
So,
February
yep.
1st, so you got till Monday.
Yes, and that does include obviously the Community Engaged Fellowship, the St. Francis Xavier Scholarship, our Winter and Pro scholarships, and you can find all that information at xavier.edu/scholarship. So it should be pretty easy to find. But February 1st is that final deadline.
all right. So Rachel talked about if she actually does decide to study abroad through Xavier, will she actually be able to apply those scholarships she was awarded?
The study abroad scholarship?
So if she was able to use scholarships she earned instead of taking the semester off, I'm assuming she would want to apply that to study abroad. Is that possible?
If it's a Xavier-run study abroad program, you can use your Xavier scholarship. If you're going through a private program like AIFS, ISA, Arcadia University, any of those outside study abroad programs but are Xavier approved, you are no longer eligible for your Xavier scholarship for that semester.
So Oliver asked, do students have to apply for grants, such as the talent grant or an athletic grant?
Students do not apply for grants. Grants are given to students based off of need or based off of achievements. So the athletic grant is given to the student when they sign their letter of intent. And the performance grants are given when the student starts to pursue a performance degree, whether it's theater, vocal, or instrumental. The department decides which students receive those grants.
All right, so from Zach, we have freshman year, the maximum student loan is $5,500, correct?
Correct.
Perfect.
Short and sweet. And then John asked if a student is interested in playing a sport for Xavier, how do they get considered for any athletic grants or scholarships?
They would have to talk to the coach if you're interested in playing a sport for Xavier. I'm assuming you've already been in contact with the coach, but the coaches, along with the NCAA representatives, go through the rosters and decide what percentage of grants each student gets based off of their NCAA clearinghouse information that they submitted. So if you're not already in contact with the coach, I would get in contact with the coach and express your interest and see what process you need to go through with that team.
All right. Is there a significant cost difference for out-of-state students?
No. The only difference for out-of-state students is that they may not qualify for some of the in-state grants. There's also a loan program that does require students live in Ohio or the states touching Ohio or the secondary states. So really that only excludes Arizona, Nevada, California, and anywhere on the East Coast. But those are emergency funds, so it's very unlikely you may not ever need that. But the only thing that would exclude you is that Ohio grant.
So James asked, does filing the FAFSA increase your scholarship money?
No.
Okay. Perfect. Do you have to commit to the college before seeing exactly what your financial aid package is?
You do request May 1st, or is it rolling in minutes?
We are rolling in mittens, but you will be able to see your financial aid package before you have to officially decide to deposit to Xavier.
So that's what the priority deadline is about, so that we can get that package out to you as soon as possible. The latest we typically award incoming freshmen is April, because at that time we're looking at graduate students and master's degree program students. We try to get all undergraduate students awarded by April.
And just so you're aware, May 1st, for those of you who don't know, is the nationwide deadline to officially make a decision.
So I know previously someone had asked a question about tuition exchange, and Luke wants to know a little bit about what tuition exchange is, so if you can explain that.
So tuition exchange is a program for students whose parents work at another university that's part of the tuition exchange program. So for Xavier, I know a couple of them are Dayton, SLU, Georgetown. Off the top of my head, those are the only ones I can think of. And those schools, you would have to work with your school there. I believe your parent would have had already done the application for that process. And then that application gets sent to the universities you apply to, and based off of the amount of available slots that university has, they award tuition exchange. At Xavier, we try to include as many students as possible, so it may be a partial tuition exchange or a full tuition exchange, depending on how much we're allotted.
All right, when you're filling out the FAFSA, do you have to insert the codes for each school, or can you just type the name on the form?
I believe it allows you to type the name on the form, but be careful with Xavier University because even when I was applying, I typed in Xavier University and it sent it to the Xavier in New Orleans and not the Xavier in Cincinnati. So make sure you're checking off the right Xavier.
Good tip.
Unless you're planning on attending Xavier New Orleans.
Yeah, and then you can send it to both. But I know I made the mistake, so I'll take that.
So Francis asked, when will students find out if they got into a program like nursing? And Evan mentioned this earlier, but we are in the process of making, for the nursing school, we are in the process of making those admission decisions this week, and we will be notifying students next week. So just hold tight, and we will be getting back to you soon.
And then if you're in occupational therapy, we are currently reviewing those as well. The deadline is February 1st to get your OT application in, so a couple days to do that. And then we will probably go over those in the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So, and those should be the only 2 selective ones, correct? Yes.
So Matthew asked, he said that we filed the FAFSA in early January using estimated figures. How do we go about making corrections to the FAFSA and enter our 2015 figures?
You just log back in using that FSA ID and password, and it's going to prompt you whether or not you're submitting corrections or you're submitting a new FAFSA, and you're going to go through the correction process. A big tip of caution with that is to make sure that you go page by page and don't skip directly to the FAFSA, to the financial information, because there are some boxes you have to check along the way, and if you don't check those and put in your FSA ID and password as your electronic signature, it will reject that FAFSA in processing, and we will not be allowed to award you based off of federal regulations.
Is there a confirmation that you or that the student has submitted the FAFSA to Xavier?
They'll receive an email. You'll receive an email from FAFSA saying that it was submitted successfully, and it should list your schools on there.
So Tessa said, there are Keys money in Kentucky and CAP grants. If I were going to be going to a school in Kentucky, is there anything like that for Xavier? And do we match Keys money?
We do not match Keys money, and there is no program like Keys money at Xavier. Like I said, there's the OCOGS for Ohio Resident State Program, but currently no Kentucky state program money is transferable.
And it says, do we participate in FACHEC's tuition exchange among Jesuit schools?
Yes.
All right. So John asked, is it possible to be considered for an athletic grant for your sophomore year if you missed the deadline for your freshman year?
Yes, but you would have to be a member of that team and be in communication with that coach. Athletic grants are not for things like intramurals or club sports teams. Athletic grants are only for Division I teams like cross country, track, soccer, women's volleyball, men's basketball, women's basketball, men's baseball. Those are Division I sports, so you would have to go through the clearinghouse process for those and sign a letter of intent for your freshman year if you're interested. You may not get grant money your freshman year based off of the team and the coach and the percentages, but you would be eligible for your sophomore year moving forward as long as the coach allocated that to you. And again, we leave that up to the coach and NCAA because there's other regulations and restrictions in play with those grants.
So Tessa said, I am majoring in biology and I have a scholarship with that. What happens if I change my major?
I
know this one.
Yeah.
So, well, first of all, it depends on the scholarship, but the one that you should have received, or if you did receive one with your acceptance letter, that one is not necessarily tied to the scholarship or to the major. That one is tied to you, the individual, because you earned that through high school work. So if you did change your major, then that's not a problem at all. You'll still get that money. However, there are only 2 majors, nursing and OT, that you cannot transfer into. So if you're interested in any of those, nursing, I apologize, but that deadline has been passed. And then OT, you have a couple days to get that in. The rest of them, it should not make a difference to transfer into those.
And then Francis had another question and asked, what if you do not file your taxes until October? Does that matter?
So you'll receive your award. That kind of puts you in a funky position. Typically, a lot of times, if your parents file an extension, if they do an amendment to their taxes, they have any sort of untaxed pension or key-off money, you'll be flagged for something called verification, and that is a federal regulation that you have to go through that process. We are not allowed to disperse your money to you. We can award you, and your award will be on your account. It just will not pay to your account until your taxes are filed, and that's going to be at any university. That is a federal restriction that you have to have your tax information linked to your FAFSA in order for those funds to disperse. You won't be penalized once that if you're waiting to file your actual taxes. We do ask that you try to get those estimates as close as possible to what you think your actual taxes are going to be. That way you won't see a huge fluctuation in your award. And like I said, that's going to be for any university. Those are all held to the same federal restrictions.
All right, so we have another question. What scholarships do you grant to Latinas or minorities?
I would recommend you look at our Xavier scholarships and look at the diversity scholarships. There's a couple of different multicultural scholarships and diversity scholarships, and a couple of women's diversity scholarships that you can apply for. None of those are specifically restricted to those of Hispanic heritage, but they are considered diversity scholarships, so you can look there.
And I believe if you look on the private scholarship page, there are several diversity options available for students there as well.
As well as women in sciences, women in teaching STEM. I think there's a couple of male in nursing scholarships as well.
And so Nathan had a question, and he asked, did you say that the loan amounts quoted were on an annual basis?
So for your freshman year, the entire freshman year, you get the $5,500. For your sophomore year, you get $6,500, and for your junior and senior year, you get the $7,500. And those are on an annual basis. So for that freshman year, the federal government, the maximum they'll give you is $5,500. If you apply for a Parent Plus loan and you get denied, you do have an option with that to increase your loan money, but you would have to prove that denial to us through that application process.
So Nathan asked another question, and he said, also you mentioned that work-study programs were available during the first week of school. However, the loans and grants would be awarded before this. Is that correct?
Work-study will be awarded before that as well. You have to qualify for work-study, and you'll be notified when that award package first goes out whether or not you qualified for work-study. So you'll know when you make your decision whether or not you can receive work-study. It is up to you, though, to obtain a job for work-study and apply that money towards your tuition. You get paid directly by the university. We don't pay it directly to your account.
And that is when, on the first week of school, is when you can interview and apply for those jobs.
Yes, there's a giant career fair for those.
All right. When do athletic scholarships show up on your account?
Once you sign your national letter of intent, the coach will be in communication with you. Beginning in July, I believe, is when they send us the actual information. But the coach should be in contact with you with how much you're getting beforehand. I know they are working to try and get those on by before May 1st, but there's a little bit of a issue with our system that the coaches are not communicating that information with us readily.
So Erica asked, if I go into Xavier with an undecided major but decide to pursue nursing, what is the process? So I guess Evan or I can speak to that a little bit.
I can talk about that. Yeah. If you applied as a nursing major before January 15th, then you're fine. The way the process works is we will look at you as an undecided student into acceptance of Xavier, which that is how you would receive. That's what it would have said on your acceptance letter. And then after January 15th, we look at all the nursing applicants. If you decided last minute after January 15th to become a nursing major, we can see what we can do, but chances are, since that is a very popular program, it's very, very difficult to get into. It's unlikely that we'll be able to look at that, but we could look and see if you are available for the wait list. But if you apply for that, then you should be good. We're reviewing those applications as we speak.
Like Evan had said, if you come to Xavier and you complete your first year as an undecided student, you could apply into the nursing program, but it is very difficult to get in. So just because you didn't want to do it your freshman year doesn't mean you're completely excluded from the program, but you would have to go through an application process. If you do in your sophomore year get accepted into that program, there would be a change with your scholarship, so you would need to be in contact with our office at that point.
All right. When will we hear if we got any scholarships for diversity?
Those, I believe, are coming out the second week in April, first or second week in April, because the applications close the second week of March.
So John said, can you remind me again, is the $5,500 that you spoke about, is that money that you would have to repay? So essentially, yes. It's a loan, correct?
Yes, that is the loan. That is your federal loan, so you would have to repay that.
All right. Rachel said, if you qualify for a need-based grant, will you be required to take a Stafford loan?
You will not be required to take a Stafford loan, but if you go through any sort of special circumstance appeal or you do a request for additional aid, that will be denied on the premises that you would need to take out that loan money. So if you receive that coming into Xavier, you can still have it. You do not have to take out the student loans, but it come, halfway through the year or sophomore year, you make a request for more aid, you would be given your loans back. We would not increase that grant amount.
So Garfield asked, in determining scholarship awards, will we use weighted GPAs? And the answer to that is yes. But typically we look at every student's GPA based on a 4.0 scale. So essentially, if you're on a 100-point scale or a 10-point scale, we convert that back to a 4.0 scale, so that way everybody's kind of on an even playing field. But yes, we will look at weighted GPAs.
So we have two questions that are kind of similar, so I might read them both. The first one is, when will I know the total amount of my scholarship offered to me? And the other one is, if you apply for an additional Xavier scholarship, when would you know if you get the awards?
So like I had said, the additional Xavier scholarships, we try to have those students notified by the second week in April at the latest, just so you can make that May 1st decision deadline. But like with some of the diversity scholarships, those are open to all students at the university. So they wait to have all students apply for those, and it's a little bit of a longer process. As for the private scholarships, we do not contact you past your application for those. Those are through private parties, and they will notify you on whether or not you received it, but you will receive direct contact from our office on whether or not you received those scholarships. And what was the first part of that?
When will we know the total amount of our scholarship offered?
You should have received your total scholarship amount upon your acceptance as your merit-based scholarship. Any additional aid you would receive from this point forward would be in the form of a grant. We do not increase scholarships.
And then financial aid packages, if you meet that priority deadline of February 15th, we're trying to get those out sooner. So hopefully late February, early March, we'll have some sort of financial aid package available. Just keep checking Road to Xavier with updated amounts. That's where every information will be delivered from here on.
So Rachel asked a question, and she said, if tuition rises in 2, 3, or 4 years, will the scholarship award be revised, or does it remain a fixed amount?
The scholarship award will remain a fixed amount, but if there's a significant increase in tuition, and I use significant very heavily because it hasn't been a significant increase for over 4 years now. But if it's a significant increase, we do try to compensate that with Xavier grants or Muskie program grants. It will not be reflected in your scholarship, but it may be reflected in a grant.
And I was just to kind of piggyback off of what Angela said, that generally speaking, when and if tuition does increase, we do our best to keep that manageable for the student. So typically that's 2 to 3%. So we do our best to keep that manageable for students.
And we're continually working every year to make sure that the scholarships are up to date and within the percentages of tuition that we allot for. We try to aim for the student to be awarded in aid at least 40%. That's with combination of scholarships and grants. But we do take into consideration if there's going to be an increase in tuition before we send out merit scholarships every year. So coming into your freshman year, you were based off of the current estimated increase in tuition.
All right, so we have one from John. He said, how does pre-med work as an intention? Would you study biology as a major?
So with pre-med, I just from
Go for it. I want to hear
experience,
your
I was a pre-med major when I first started Xavier, and I came in as natural sciences. So you have that option. You can be biology, chemistry, natural sciences.
Technically, as pre-med, you can do any major you would like. Pre-med is considered a track. We, however, recommend to best prepare you for med school that you take the ones that Angela mentioned.
Exactly. And I mean, like I said, I started off pre-med. I graduated with a degree in biophysics.
Yeah.
So, starting off undecided or in natural sciences, something with a broad experience for you may not be the worst idea.
And then Nicholas asked, is it possible to get an ROTC scholarship as a second-year student?
Yes, there is. So we try to achieve 90% commission on all our ROTC students by their second year of being a part of the program. So whether you join, your freshman year or you join your sophomore year, by your second year in that program, we try to have you 90% commissioned. You would have to talk to ROTC about that process. The most we do is just receive your name on a list that tells us to award you. But if you talk to the ROTC office, they can give you more of the requirements and the deadlines and the factors that would go into you receiving that commission.
What opportunities for scholarships are available once a student is attending Xavier?
So once you're attending Xavier, moving into your sophomore year, we have retention grants that go to students with express need. We also have upperclassmen scholarships, RAN scholarships, and other departmental scholarships that you can get into your sophomore year. So you would look out for those beginning in February of your freshman year next year, and look for the application for those, and you have to apply for them. Most of them are a 3.0 GPA requirement. So you would have to have at least a 3.0 to apply for upperclassmen or RAN. And you do the simple application for those online, submit them, and then you'd be notified in May or June once grades are in, whether or not you receive that scholarship.
And Hunter wants to know if a student has received a letter or has signed their letter of intent and know how much the coach is giving them, but that amount doesn't show up until July. Will that affect the amount they qualify for in a loan?
No, it will not affect the amount you qualify for in the loan. The federal loan program is not restricted to your athletic aid grant. Like I said, that's the estimate they're giving of when that'll post to your account. We're working to try and get it onto your Road to Xavier account before then. It just won't be on your actual first start page, but we will be notified of who's receiving those. And there's just a little bit of a kink in the system with this new FAFSA for this year, which is the same reason that universities are having to go through that new secure process. And that's just for your information safety. So it's really not a big deal that you're going through this later process than you would have in other years. But if you've been notified, our office is working as closely as we can to NCAA and to those coaches to get that information as soon as we can. But the only things that may be restricted with an athletic grant are your merit scholarships and any other grants that Xavier would have given you, like a Muskie program grant or an XU grant. Those are typically not given to students getting athletic grants. If you're getting a full athletic grant, you are restricted to federal aid and the Pell Grant.
All right, so Tessa said, I know I missed the chat about housing, but can you start applying for housing? And if so, how do you get to that? Actually, this is the very first 2016 Muskie chat we've had, so you have not missed it yet. We should be having it sometime around mid or late February. We try to do things as the timeline allows them. So usually February into March is when housing will open up. So you have not missed it. You are right on track and you're doing the right steps. So just keep hanging in there and keep letting us know. We'll keep providing you with information.
Absolutely. So Rachel asked if she receives, or if a student receives a higher scholarship offer from another university, will Xavier reevaluate the award?
We do not do scholarship matching at Xavier University. You can put in a request for additional aid, and you may receive that in a grant, as I said, but once you receive your merit-based scholarship, you get that merit-based scholarship. Now, if you, correct me if I'm wrong, if you retake your SAT or your ACT and you get a higher score, you can resubmit those scores, and that'll be taken into consideration with your scholarship. But we do not do scholarship matching between other universities.
Correct.
All right, so Brittany said, I'm a high school senior coming in with over 60 college credits. When or how do I find out if all of my credits will transfer, and will I be considered as a freshman or a junior? All right, so this one is on us.
Yes.
So what we would do, typically, we can give you an unofficial evaluation of those credits. So you would contact your admissions counselor. We can take a look and see what some of those credits may transfer in. Then once you officially deposited, we will have our credit evaluation office go over those credits and see how they connect. It's typically, if it's a C or higher and from a regionally accredited institution, we will accept that credit. How it transfers those up to that credit valuation that you will receive after you deposit. Typically, you are coming in as a freshman, so you're coming in as a student, but you may have more credit hours that allow you to then graduate earlier or take another degree or take another third degree. That will be determined once we get a look at how your credits transfer.
And if you are considered, if your credits go through and you, they transfer and you're considered at sophomore level and you're planning on graduating early, you can contact our office and we can increase your federal loan amount to the sophomore, the junior, or the senior level. But if you're intending to be here for 4 years and get multiple degrees or multiple degrees, multiple minors, then I would have a conversation with our office and see kind of what the best plan would be for you, because there will be a point where you will run out of federal aid or it will have to be reduced if you take too much early on. So that's kind of an individual thing, and I would, once you know for sure, I would ask you to please sit down with a counselor in our office.
Now, does Xavier have any clubs or organizations that if you join, you would receive a grant or first-year scholarships?
So we do offer a first-generation scholarship, and that information is on our webpage. So I would look at that and see what you need to do to qualify for that. But we also have a program called Trio Support Services, and there are restrictions on who qualifies for that Trio program. So look at their webpage and see whether or not you qualify. Those are another second-year type of grant deal. So you would get that student support grant your second year at the university after completing all the requirements to receive that. And I mean, I've seen grants for that program as low as $500, as high as $4,000. So if you qualify for it, it is very beneficial for you to invest your time in that program.
All right, so Tessa has a question again about her major. She is interested in pre-vet, and she has currently applied as biology, but she's wondering if that's the right fit for a pre-vet major or if biology would be too much plant-based.
I took biology and it wasn't too plant-based. You have your choice on whether or not you would like to take botany or cell biology or, oh gosh, I took genetics. I took genetics. I took it twice. You take genetics and you take the lab. I split them up for years, or between 2 years. You can take environmental biology. There's a bunch of different options, and those would play into something called your electives. I mean, you could even take a class in forensics if you wanted to, and that would apply towards one of your physics credits. And I recommend it. I taught it. It was TA. It was great. But you don't necessarily have to take botany to get a biology degree.
I also will recommend, Tessa, if you are interested in the difference between natural science and biology, if you go onto the website and look at our majors, you can see a breakdown of what a typical schedule looks like. And so you can get an idea of what most students are applying for in those classes.
And if you start off natural sciences and you want to switch to biology or vice versa, that's really not a hard switch to make. Now, if you start off in philosophy and you want to switch to physics, that's a little bit difficult because you do have to have those higher level math classes and things like that. But if you're doing a quick fix, you know, you really decide biology is just too much for you, you don't want to do it, you'd rather have a broader scope, you can always switch your major.
So Erica asked a question that we've already touched on a little bit. So she said, is the Xavier Scholarship award that was sent out with my acceptance letter a definite amount, or is it possible to get additional awards?
It is a definite amount for that merit-based scholarship. Like I had said, if you've taken the SAT again or the ACT again and gotten a higher score, you can submit that for consideration and it may increase it, but typically that merit amount is your final amount. Now, when you submit the FAFSA and we see your need, you may get Xavier grants, whether it's a Muskie program grant or a Xavier University grant. You would be eligible for both of those based off of that FAFSA information, and those would play into your non-repayable aid because you don't have to get paid grants back. It's money given to you like a scholarship, and it is guaranteed for 4 years.
All right, how much is Xavier's tuition?
Currently, right now, tuition for the regular arts and science degree is $17,025, not including fees. For the business school, it's $17,525, not including fees. That's for one semester's tuition. So it's 36. My math's a little off. My math's a little off, guys. About 36. You can look at the tuition and fees breakdown on our webpage. If you go to xavier.edu/financial-aid, there is a tuition and fees calculator on there. And you can see, you know, if I live in this dorm and I take this meal plan, this is what my estimated cost for the year is going to be. But typically, it's about 36 for each student, give or take.
Does Xavier grant community service scholarships? And you talked a little bit about
Yeah, so that's the community engaged fellowship scholarship that you would have to apply for. So I would tell you to look at their website because, like I said, that is a separate website, a separate office that does that. The St. Francis Xavier does look at some community service, but it's not community service restricted. It is a essay competition. So you write your essay into us, we look at it and we invite the students. I believe that's still how they're running it. And you go through a group interview process. So look at both of those, look at the differences. Moving forward into your sophomore year, there are some service-based scholarships that you can apply for as a returning student. But I think that's all for your freshman year, those two.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up soon. We're going to ask a couple more questions to Angela, but then we're going to wrap it up. The first one, though, I'm going to answer. It's, will you notify the future Muskie chats via email? Yes, we do. We will always email you of the Muskie chats. Also, make sure you are checking Road to Xavier constantly. I always recommend at least once a week, if not more. All of our information from here until you become a current student is through that site. So you'll be able to see future Muskie chats, log on to those future Muskie chats. Any information is on that site. So that's our tool that we use. But to answer a few more questions before we end for the evening. What? Oh, sorry. Does the FAFSA amount change per school?
No. FAFSA stays the same for school, whether you attend a private university, a state university, or a junior college or accrediting body. The amount the federal government awards you will stay the same because it's based off of your tax information. Now, if that university decides to award you more in grants or merit scholarships or any other scholarships, that may change from university to university. But once you fill out the FAFSA, that is the amount you're eligible for through the FAFSA.
And Kelsey asked, would the competitive scholarships be awarded in addition to the merit-based scholarship that a student has previously been awarded?
If you receive the Community Engaged Fellow or the St. Francis Xavier, because those are full tuition and fee scholarships, those trump your merit scholarship. So if you receive the St. Francis Xavier in its entirety and you have a presidential scholarship or a dean's scholarship, you would lose those scholarships because those are tuition restricted as well. And if you're getting a scholarship that's full tuition scholarship, you couldn't have both.
All right. And at what point after we submit the FAFSA will Xavier let us know about those need-based grants?
It'll come in your award package on your Road to Xavier page. Like I had mentioned before, we're trying to get those out to students by the second week in March.
And then Garfield said, sorry if you mentioned this already, but are there any awards given for room and board?
If you're in ROTC, there's award given for room and board, and there is a room grant given to students who qualify for it based off of their FAFSA information. So if they have that need-based component, they can qualify for a small room grant that will help them with their housing.
All right, and our last question for the evening is if I receive my FAFSA EFC for around $8,000 and receive the Xavier Award for $18,000, how do I make up the difference?
Your EFC is not your federal aid award that you will receive. Your EFC, especially at this point in time, is your estimated family contribution. So according to FAFSA, that is what your family is estimated to be able to contribute to your college education based off of the information you supplied on the FAFSA. So if you're looking to make up the difference, you can get your federal loans. You may qualify for some Xavier grants at that point in time. And you also can look at taking out the Parent Plus loan or a private alternative loan.
All right. If you guys do have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to either Sarah, myself, or Angela. Any of our offices would be more than happy to help you out. But we want to thank you all very much for coming and joining us this evening. Again, check Road to Xavier for more of these Muskie chats. We host them typically every other week and about a variety of topics. So we hope to see you all again. And thank you all very much. I hope this was very helpful.